Yes, hello, Bill. This is the Donald. You're late, very, very late. Latest person I've ever seen to our meeting, 11 minutes. If you ask me, I wouldn't have been late. I would have never been late for something like this. But you were late. Well, we understand you're at Disney. A lot of woke Dems, liberals running around Disney. Okay? Don't let them infect you. Okay? Until then, until we hear from you, you're fired. Goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to another episode of Trudge Report. This is a recovery-based podcast, but don't worry. If you're not sober or not ready to be sober, we talk about plenty of other things, including sports, trending topics, and a good bit of nonsense. My name is Sean, and I am your host. I am joined by my good friends and fellow Trudgers, Bill, Corey, and Greg. You can check out new episodes of Trudge Report every Tuesday. Listen on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Later each week, you can watch our episodes on YouTube and Facebook, but please be sure to download on your listening platforms. Remember to like and subscribe on all social media outlets with the handle @TrudgeReportPod. We are brought to you by Stella Mix Podcast Management and our wonderful producer and editor, Miss Janine Stella. We are here on Friday, March 22nd, all four of us in undisclosed locations, as you probably know by well now. And gentlemen, good evening. How are we tonight?
Fantastic.
Good stuff. We're going to get right into our Around the Horn segment. And we are going to go Mr. Bill first. Around the Horn. How's your week been? What's going on, buddy?
My week's been fantastic, Sean. Thanks for asking. Beautiful lead in, by the way, I must mention. For me, I guess I'm gonna start it off with my honesty segment. We've skipped that for a few weeks. I haven't found a need for it. My honesty segment is gonna be for those with keen eyes that watched the actual YouTube video last week. Corey was correct. I did sit in front of a balloon with one ear for the entire show, so I really feel ripped off for my $16 because that was crazy. That's like the first thing I noticed after I turned around after we were done recording.
Should have been
My
$8.
apologies. I'm sorry, Corey. Good eye through the waves and the Wi-Fi that you were dealing with. So that was good. Secondly, you already know where I'm going. Steelers update. It's Steeler Nation update time, baby. You know where we're at. And we're going to go with, we left on a very high note. Can we get much higher? Can we get much higher? In the words of my friend Kanye West. The question is, how much better can the Steelers really get? After the podcast last week, we turn around and we trade a 6th round draft pick for Justin Fields, a guy who's tracking right now, if he was a free agent, to get a 6-year, $270 million contract. That guy is going to play second fiddle to Russ. There is word on the street that if Russ doesn't perform to the Steelers' liking, he could get cut. I don't know how true that is, but that does come from a reputable source. I'm excited, man. We haven't had a good quarterback since Ben, and Ben was really just like an old dead horse at the end of his career. So it's been tough to watch. So I'm excited now that I'm sober and I can watch some good Steeler football again. I mean, that's exciting to me. Steelers Super Bowl odds went from, to get this in now, I would never encourage gambling, but I will bring this up because go all in. Steelers were 7,000 to lift the Lombardi. We're now sitting at an improved 6,000, ladies and gentlemen. So I just want to let you know, if you put a smooth 100 on that, you'd have a $6,000 profit at the end of the year. It may seem improbable to some. I'm not doubting it at all. So I think that the Steelers are going to do something special this year. Take out Cleveland, take out the Ravens, take out Philly in the Super Bowl,
Yeah, all right.
and hoist that Lombardi, baby. That's right.
What a pipe dream.
It's going to happen.
I think Mike Tomlin's going to beat Russell Wilson up before the end of the season. I'm very interested to see how that relationship is going to go.
If you don't get along with Mike Tomlin, I don't know. I do question you. I hope they get along. You don't think they will?
I think it's going to be I think Pete Carroll was a rare breed, and I don't think he didn't really get along with Nathaniel Hackett, and he definitely did not get along with Sean Payton. But I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting. I'm intrigued. I'll say that. I'm intrigued.
We could probably all agree that Russell Wilson is the weirdest version of cocky I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's so weird. Yeah. But if he plays well, I'm gonna have his jersey on by the end of the year on this podcast. So moving on though, yeah, Steelers push it all in, guys, and UFC 300's coming up, MLB's coming up. Hopefully, we'll touch on that soon, and then also Mike Tyson versus not Logan Paul, but Jake Paul.
Mhm.
Is that his name? Jake Paul, right?
That's his name, yeah.
The other Paul. Okay.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Have you switched your tune over here?
Well,
Is
here
that
we
what I'm
go.
sensing?
So that's a keen ear you got there. So when we talked about this, I said I would go all in that Jake Paul wins the fight because of the odds. He was 2-1 to lose the fight. Well, those odds have now reversed. So I guess I was on to something. So now Paul is actually favored to win that fight. So disregard what I said last week. Push it all back in, whatever you have left from your Steeler bets, and put that back on Mike Tyson, Iron Mike at 58. Let's hope he body shots and knocks out that little punk. Thank you.
My money's on Mike.
Indeed.
Thank
It would
you.
have hurt to bet against Mike.
Jeez. Greg, excuse me. Yeah, Greg. Yeah, Greg, you're up. Hey, Greg.
Hey, so just real quick to respond to Bill, I hope your Steelers are good. I really do. They have put together quite the offense. Your guys' defense is always solid. I will always give credit where credit's due, even if I don't like you. But let's temper our expectations and remember that not one, but now two teams have literally paid Russell Wilson to go elsewhere. They said, listen, we'll pay the lion's share of your salary if you go play for a team that's not us. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens. But again, like I said, the fact that you guys got Justin Fields for a steal, again, after getting Russell Wilson for a steal is pretty amazing. So I wish you guys all the best. The
I don't wish you guys
AFC
the
North, that's
gonna
fine.
be a
The
monster.
AFC North is going to be the best division in football. Mark my word.
Gonna be a monster.
Thank you, Greg.
In other sports news, we have had a kind of a crazy week. 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks before Major League Baseball season starts up. Man, we've got this stuff going on with Shohei. Is that Shohei? Is that how you say his first name? Shohei Otani.
Shohei.
Yeah, baseball's golden boy at this point, and now we got all this this gambling, stealing, possible cheating, stuff coming out.
The Yokozuna's after him.
The Yakuza may
yes,
very well.
Bill
oh, yeah,
would be
you know,
referring
yes,
to the
yes.
Yakuza, the Japanese gang, the Yakuza. But yes, just
Not to be
clarify for our
confused with
listeners.
the RIP, wrestler from the 90s. So
Right.
Big Yo.
Or Yokohama Tires or Yo-Yo Ma the musician. We don't want to get
Correct.
anybody confused here or anything like that. The
correct.
Yakuza.
We're talking about the
Yoko.
guys in all black suits with ninja swords. Yes.
Not Yoko Ono.
Badasses. Yeah, they're just some
Bad,
badasses too.
But yeah, it is crazy because at first, like, so Otani's interpreter, who's always with him, who's always next to him at every press conference, all that kind of stuff. It comes out that it comes out one day that Otani is giving him $4.5 million to pay off his gambling debts, that he's got gambling debts. And then the next day they completely retract that statement and say, hold on, no, we didn't pay him any money. He stole this money. And now it's just there's just mass confusion. Nobody knows what to believe. You got people all over Twitter and the internet and everywhere else claiming that there could be a chance that Otani was throwing games, and like people have boiled it down to like games where he struck out and they lost and the spread was -3, or and all this other stuff. It certainly paints a compelling storyline. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. What I think is probably the more likely cause of that is basically the way that things are in this day and age is, baseball's golden boy can't be seen to associate with somebody that's got a hardcore gambling problem. So, he probably went to help his boy out, and then all his PR people were like, you can't be doing that. And here's where we are now. But again, if something like that, like the fact that they tried to cover that up or some cheating accusations comes out against this dude, it would, I won't say it'll cripple Major League Baseball, but it's certainly not a good story for Major League Baseball at all. So
Not what they'd be looking for, that's for sure.
no. Yeah, and in other sports related news, and the last thing I got is it was just announced that WWE SummerSlam will be coming to you live August 3rd from none other than my backyard, Cleveland, Ohio, which can mean only one thing, boys. Excuse me for just a moment. It means that any one of you jabronis listening out there, that includes you too, little hands, can absolutely get a shot at this here title belt if you're man enough. You can catch me on the majestic shores of Lake Erie Saturday, August 3rd at 1 p.m. in the Muni lot. That's short for the municipal parking lot for all you uncultured swine out there. So if you want to go toe-to-toe with the Ginger Ninja, I hereby issue an open challenge for any candy ass that wants a shot. Thank you.
Greg, what's the over-under on MGK coming out with a steel chair and hitting somebody at SummerSlam?
Oh my God,
He's got to check with his handler, Megan Fox. She wears the pants, from what I understand.
Meg the Shark. Okay, all right. I think he'll be there.
Wait, really? Machine Gun Kelly might show up? Is that a real
I'm from
thing?
Cleveland.
I'm sure
I
he
hope
will.
not, but
I'm sure he
okay.
will though.
He looks like a wrestler, kind of.
I can't figure that dude out.
he looks like a
I don't
girl.
think he can figure himself out.
He's a strange dude.
Hate him.
Eminem ruined him.
Yeah.
Ruined him completely.
But he
Just
did
broke
good.
the guy.
He did good in that Motley Crue documentary, The
The
Dirt.
movie,
He
I
did.
heard
He
That was
actually he was really good in that.
That's the only thing he's ever done.
Well,
good,
it's probably about drugs and losing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect
Fair.
role for him.
pretty much.
and kind of us being in a successful band too, I would say.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Side note.
That's the side.
Okay,
note. Yeah,
good.
that's-
All right, good.
There has been so.
Well, Greg, I hope you get some formidable opponents on August 3rd there.
Anybody who wants, maybe.
We'll have to figure out a way to live stream it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Corey, the horn has been passed.
I have the horn. I've never had a wrestling promo cut on me, Greg. That was impressive.
Oh, was.
That made me feel good. I suppose that there will be plans to go out to go up there. I'm literally dealing with a manic episode right now of FOMO with WrestleMania being in 2 weeks because I've pretty much decided that I'm not going to fly to Philadelphia for it. And it's bad. It hurts. It hurts.
Pretty much means that he still hasn't fully made up his mind, and there's still a chance.
What's crazy is that I will make up my mind about not going. It's like drugs, actually. And then I start looking at tickets again, and I'm like, oh, I see that they've dropped a little bit. So then I like walk out in the living room, like, Gabby, so if I do it like this, I can go. And it's the whole thing. Anyway, aside from that,
I mean, you could just piss your wife off. Was she gonna leave you? You know what I mean?
yes, Sean, that's always a possibility.
Okay.
So
Come on.
Otherwise, those tickets would have been booked.
yeah, I mean, honestly, she's been pretty supportive about it, though. If I said I want to go, she would be like, all right. But I'm trying to make the good decisions here. I'd also but I could also just plan a trip next year to Disney. Start planning that and probably feel good about it. Anyway, furthermore, I did a bill last week. Number one, let me start with I made it back from New Orleans. Nolans. I am here in
Nolans.
the undisclosed Florida location. I did not bring the server with me.
Did you have a bowl?
She is
Thank God.
presumed to be safe in her hometown in Louisiana. It's fine.
Missed opportunities.
Right. So, but anyway, I made it back safe. Two things. One, like I said, I did a bill last week, and I don't know what you call that thing, Sean. A mea whata?
Mea culpa.
What does that mean?
Basically, like an apology,
All right. Well,
or
sure.
like an acknowledgement that you screwed up.
Okay. I'm gonna do one of those. I said, remember you guys? I said I went to a restaurant.
Bill, look up the official definition. Bill, he's on it. He's already on it. Sorry, go ahead, Corey.
Good. Remember I said I went to a restaurant and it was called Bobby Hebert's. Remember I said, and you guys were like, no. It's Bobby Herbet. It's French, apparently. Anybody know him? Because
that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. Nobody called
You know
on.
him, Greg?
Actually, one of the fans, well, I don't know him personally, but
No,
one of
but
our
you know.
diehard fans.
But a guy I know, him and her,
Show.
got it on.
yeah. Her name was Marlene. But no,
what was the teacher's name? That Veronica Vaughn is one piece of
Veronica
ace.
Vaughn.
so hot.
R.I.P. Chris Farley.
No, but one of our diehard fans actually just texted me about it the other day, and he's from up this way, and he's like, dude, how can Corey not know who this guy is? And he was
really?
a quarterback. He was a very mediocre quarterback for the New Orleans Saints back in the day, but yeah.
Okay, well.
So if he was better, Corey would have probably known him.
No,
probably not.
Corey wouldn't have known.
No.
Shout out. Should have been better, Bobby.
Corey, do you know who Drew Brees is?
I do know who Drew Brees is.
Because he went to Disney.
For the most part, it's 2022 and current. Like, let's start at 2022 with the things that Corey knows about football. That's where we're going to start. And a little bit of 2018 because the Eagles were in the Super Bowl. And then, anyway, so that I screwed that name up entirely, but that's where we were. It was called Bobby Herbet, and it was very good. I already explained that.
Bobby Boucher's.
Yeah, that's it. Also, I did almost nothing in New Orleans, just to talk about that. I worked a lot while I was there, unfortunately. However, the last day that we were there, we went into New Orleans to a St. Patrick's Day parade, and I feel, I could be wrong, I didn't verify this, but I feel like it was literally a little snippet of Mardi Gras, because they were ready for a party on a Saturday morning in New Orleans. It was crazy.
Pretty sure
we got
that's
a
all
bunch
they
of
do
stuff.
there.
It seems like it. That's what I'm saying. Like they showed up. I did almost get into an altercation with a drunk guy. I did not though, because cooler heads prevail, and nobody wants to get arrested in New Orleans. At least not this guy. And you know, I haven't gotten into a physical altercation in at least 8 years, and I'm trying to keep it that way. Plus, I could have lost. So there was a lot of reasons not to. However, he was heavily intoxicated, and I'm just saying.
Noah would never look at you the same if he saw you lose that fight.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Noah was my backup.
I was going to say, Noah might have to save your ass.
Noah would bite his ankles.
Yeah, that guy.
Start getting beat up. I got kids here, man. What's wrong with you?
But yeah, he I assume he was there drinking all day, so he was ready to go. But anyway, that was no problem. We, you know,
some people aren't aware, Corey, but you know that Mardi Gras is like all of February, right? So they're probably like ready to go. Like any reason you can get, they're ready.
I didn't know that I knew it was like at least a week, but I was informed that it's multiple weeks. Like they're just going.
Mm-hmm.
And like because we didn't do anything really, and because I got that little snippet, and obviously I don't drink, but it seemed still like it would be like Mardi Gras would still be like a fun thing to visit for a few hours one night. So I hope to maybe one day go there for that whole festivity and see what that's all about. But I don't know.
Cool.
Anyway, New Orleans is definitely unique from what I did see of it. But yeah, I'm home safe and sound, and that's about it. Also, lastly, if Mike Tyson loses that fight, it's rigged. Hands down, nobody will ever change my mind. That guy was caught singing in a mirror that Carly Rae Jepsen song. I sent that to you guys.
Sing it for me.
What song is that? Call Me Maybe? Was that it?
So call me maybe.
Was that the one?
I just met you. Here's my number. That one. You guys didn't think I know that song, did you?
No, I thought you knew it for sure.
No. But yeah, so it's rigged if he loses. Just saying. That's all for me.
Good stuff. All right, so we got a little bit of we got Greg. He's going to come in with an intro here. We got some do's and don'ts. Again, we have an interesting segment that let's just say that we were not all fully in agreement with throughout the entire week, but we had our prep meeting yesterday, and we're going to give this a ride. We have honestly a lot of different directions this could go. I will say it's something that all four of us have unique personal experience with, and a lot of people listening to this podcast also will have personal experience. I did try to solicit some stories from some of the guys, and they said they were going to send them to me, but they didn't. But and then those who do not have personal experience with this, the non-recovery people listening to this, the people that don't need recovery in their lives, that are sober by nature. Hopefully you'll at least find this interesting and a little insight and window into our early recovery. So with that, I'll give you Greg, and this is going to be on halfway house etiquette and stories. Halfway houses. Go ahead, Greg.
Thanks, Sean. And just to preface, I think we kind of talked about this, but all this stuff is, for the most part, just good rules for living. I would say certainly crucial when it comes to halfway house living, but like if you live with a roommate, if you and your wife and your kids, or whoever you're living with, just some good rules for living. Okay. I lived in a sober living community, co-ed community, for a little over 18 months after I left treatment. And during that time, I was house manager within that community for a little bit. And I met a lot of really good people. And a lot of those people are still very close friends of mine today. And, all that was, kind of just by sticking through the winters, sticking with the winners. But that being said, navigating the ins and outs of first time or second time or eighth time for some people, sober living can prove difficult to most, especially if you're a barbarian. So here's a few things that I found that might be helpful along the way, right? Clean up after yourself. It isn't that difficult. This is a big step in just being an adult, is cleaning up after yourself. So whether or not that's your dishes, after you use the kitchen, after you use the bathroom, within the confines of your own room, the laundry room, wherever, just clean up after yourself. It was impressed upon me very early on by one of the wonderful gentlemen in this chat that I needed to make my bed every morning. And if I didn't make my bed every morning, that not only would I come back to either my bed flipped over or the sheets thrown on the floor or whatever, but more importantly, that I deserved a made bed, right? Like I deserved to come home from work and have a made bed to sleep in, right? And that was kind of like the first part about, having a little bit of respect for yourself and the other people in your household. Learn how to piss in the toilet bowl and not all over the rest of the bathroom. And again, if you can't control yourself, if you got a heavy spray or something like that, learn how to clean it up. Do the few chores that are asked of you, and you'll find that you're actually much happier in a clean house. This is, believe it or not, and especially for a whole bunch of adults, this is the hardest part, is getting grown people to do chores. It's absolutely insane, but I digress. If you didn't buy the food, it's not your food. And if you get caught roaming the house with Seroquel munchies at 3 a.m., just expect that you might get checked for eating somebody else's ham sandwich or whatever else you're digging in that fridge for. Okay. Huffing air duster, drinking mouthwash, and abusing your psych meds is not sobriety. And if you get caught, you're probably going to get the boot. Okay. Goes without saying. Here's something that I had to learn from none other than our buddy Bill. And it wasn't directly involving him, but don't run your mouth off at people that you barely know, and you might live a little longer, right? And so yeah, definitely a lesson I had to learn for myself. Glad I had some good friends around me to teach me that. Fellas, know the rules about what it means when your roommate puts a sock on the door handle. It might keep you from having to experience something terrible. Take some suggestions from the people that came before you and seem to be doing better than you are. They usually have at least a couple nuggets of wisdom for you. Dudes, depending on your house manager's pee in a cup schedule, you may have to line up in a cattle line to wait your turn. We all had to do it. And if you get stage fright in front of other dudes, just know that we're going to make a little bit of fun of you for it. It's just the way things go. Or one of the methods of employment that we used to have was to send a large Russian man into the bathroom with you to sing to you in Russian until the urine began to flow freely. So,
That's terrifying.
if you have a lurking large Russian man in your sober living house, just beware. I have met very few people in the past 7 years that met their current husband or wife in their first few months sober and living in halfway. If you think she's the one, the odds say otherwise. So take your time. Don't make any crazy decisions. And for the love of God, buy a box of Trojans. You'll thank me later.
Don't take her word for it. If she says she's on birth control, don't take her word for it.
Nope. Stack your money the best way you can. You're going to reach a point when you outgrow living in halfway, and moving out is not cheap, especially in this day and age. A lot of people try to tell me early on not to buy Red Bull and cigarettes and to save my money and to not go bowling and go to the movies. And of course, I'm stubborn, so I didn't listen, and I proved to be a lot more difficult, moving out and getting established and everything like that. So live and learn and listen to the people that came before you. Stack your money up the best you can. And certainly, like, on a more serious note, learn how to have a little bit of fun again in life. Some of the best moments for me early on were being around a bunch of people that are kind of all in the same boat together. Late into the night, we're sitting outside telling war stories, playing cards, and just like learning how to laugh again. You spend so much time living in the misery of drug addiction and alcoholism, man. Like, I don't know about anybody else, but like, I forgot how to laugh and just have a little bit of fun with people again. A lot of people that I was in halfway with are out there living fulfilling, wonderful lives. Some of them are the best friends that I have in my life today. But on the other hand, I've met many people over the last 7 years that aren't here anymore because they didn't want to be real with themselves and take a good look in the mirror. So if you notice people in your community struggling, take a minute to check on them and talk to them, because you never know how just like 60 seconds of your time could help impact somebody else. I got stories for days. I don't know if we want to get into them. It might take 3 episodes to get through them, but definitely some funny stories out there to be had for sure. But I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I want to hear what you got.
Thank you, Greg. We'll go around a little bit, and then if depending on how long we go, we can maybe fire some stories in there, and obviously Bill and Corey, if you guys have stories. That was good stuff, Greg. Let's see, Corey, you're up next, bud.
I like that, Greg. I like that a lot.
You're so awkward, dude.
Why am I awkward?
I love it. I
like that, Greg. Greg, I like that a lot.
Well, dude, every time we task him with doing this, it's just like home run.
That's why we task him with doing it. He's good at it.
You're hired, buddy. You're hired. So
what's my salary, man?
Nothing. Halfway for me was truly, for sure, one of the greatest times of my life, oddly enough. And I think like society and like popular, I don't know if opinion's the word, but sure, of like a halfway house is kind of negative. And I guess I get why that is, because like you associate it with people that are barely sober, possibly not sober, whatever. But in my experience, I had a good time, and I found a really good foundation of recovery while living in a sober living or a halfway house. That being said, I can't remember. I think I just took a note that I think Greg said something about, and I took a note, but now I can't remember what he said. But my note was, like the people that you're in halfway with, not all of them are going to mean business about their recovery. I was fortunate enough that I did have a few people around me that were serious about at least staying sober. And several of them like really wanted to better their lives too, because there's a big difference there. Some people are just trying to get the consequences to stop. Some people are trying to do that plus become a better version of themselves than they've ever been. And man, I hung out with those people, and like you said, Greg, like the people that were and I'm halfway sober living for me. Like part of my time was in like a sober living house that was run by like a treatment center, and part of my time was in an actual halfway house. So it's all kind of wrapped into one for me. But like you said, man, the people that were running up to Speedway or racetrack or whatever it was to spend their food stamps on Red Bulls and the few dollars they had on scratchers and whatever else, like those were honestly, those are not the people that stayed sober.
Around today.
Yeah, they're not around. And it's all because of the mentality that they had about whether it was life and death or not. You know, how serious were they going to take the position they were in? I, for one, was, you know, I was like shipped here from New Jersey. I didn't have any options, you know what I mean? And like, I knew that. And I was 19. Like, it was that bad that a 19-year-old, I'm kind of stroking my ego, or not ego, but like I'm kind of praising myself here, but it wasn't really anything to do with me. It was just that
is that what you call it? Is that the nickname? My ego?
Yeah. I just thank God I had the mentality that like I wasn't going to be stupid about that stuff. Not to say I didn't make mistakes. A lot of the things that you rattled off, I kind of did find my wife like around that time, not in the halfway house, kind of, you know, early sobriety.
They weren't in the same halfway house.
No,
let's say that.
No, but that actually goes into one of my halfway stories that I was going to save for last. But sliding into that topic, I don't know if any of you have this experience. I do. My best friend, the best man in my wedding, he'll love this, kicked me out of my halfway house. Did anybody know that?
No.
No? I was spending little to no time at my halfway house because I was spending a lot of time at Gabby's 3/4 house. Sorry to the owner of that house if she happens to tune in. But it's time to get honest about it.
You weren't supposed to be there?
I was supposed to be there a little bit.
Not as much as you were?
Not a lot of it. But yeah, it went pretty ridiculous. And one day my buddy Corey calls me and says, he was a halfway house manager at the time, and says, bro, you haven't slept in this bed in weeks. I got somebody that needs it. And I was pissed. And then eventually I came around to the fact that I was literally taking another newly sober drug addict's bed. And Gabby and I shortly thereafter moved in together anyway with our own place. So it worked out fine, but I was mad. So that's what he, yeah, good for him.
Good for him.
And then like another thing real quick, like you're definitely in a house with other drug addicts. And like I said, not everybody's there to better their lives. Some people are there for what's called an oil change. And they're just drying out a bit. Unfortunately, that's a sad truth. I'm sure that some of us probably have had that experience. They're just drying out until their next run, and that's a sad fact. But some of those people will also, upon departure of that halfway house, steal your suitcase with all of your change in it, but leave your other belongings that isn't money behind. At least, I guess that was nice of them. That totally happened. I walked over to my closet one day. Again, the halfway house that I was not staying at too frequently. Maybe I should have, and I'd still have my change today.
Possible.
I didn't think about it like that, so that's a problem of my own making. But you know, so obviously keep an eye on your possessions, because sometimes it's not always going to work out so great if you don't. But ultimately, Greg, I couldn't stop laughing about the heavy spray comment. that was ridiculous. But yeah, man, the good list. And you know, that, man, when to close this off for me, if you're in halfway or like in a sober living, if you're in the beginning of that whole journey, it's an amazing tool to use. You know, I was always told to use it as a place to sleep for the most part. There's things happening in recovery that are not at the halfway house and they're elsewhere. Go outside of the halfway house for sure. Get to know sober people that have gotten their lives together, who've moved on from that. process, so you can see how it's done, you know. But ultimately, you know, if you don't have those good people in your halfway house, be one of those good people that's going to be the example of taking recovery seriously, and hopefully some people will follow along. So that's all I got, I think.
Very good. Thank you, Corey. All right, Bill.
All right. Thanks for that, gentlemen. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, I've never been to a halfway house, well, damn, you're lucky. That's all I'm going to say about that is, you know, thank God. And I reason to think that this would be very entertaining because it is entertaining. You know, I've been to dozens of halfway houses, mostly up north. Actually, I was only in one in Florida, and that's where I really got recovered at. And imagine that, you know. But I will say, you know, up north in halfway houses, it was a lot of jokes. It was all jokes, you know, everything was joking, funny. And, you know, I recently turned on my Facebook after like 7 years, partly due to this podcast and seeing that and seeing the memories pop up of that stuff and the crap that I thought was funny 10 years ago. And the amount of people that are dead, like from those groups of people is absolutely, seriously, it's like mind blowing, you know. Almost like if I think of somebody that was in the halfway with up there, I go, I'm going to go look, but I'm pretty sure they're probably dead. Yep. Sure enough, they're dead. You know what I mean? And if they're not, I'm like, holy shit, you know? And, so, and I do see people who have changed their lives up there and that's amazing as well. And the correlation with people who do well is they follow the rules there at the halfway house. You know, that's something I didn't get for a long time. Like I was, the king of jokes. And I always thought we would make these like pacts and brotherhoods of we're going to be best friends forever. And I was completely not serious about changing my life. I was that guy that I should be aware of, you know, and that's how I had to know who the wolf was, you know what I mean? Because the wolf portrays himself in a lot of different ways. Could be the jokester. It could be the evil intent. It could be the low key guy that's in the corner that just says, hey, I got what you like. You know what I mean? There's just all those brands everywhere. And I've been all those brands. And I had to almost live through all those to see what to avoid, you know what I mean? And, you know, we're always brotherhood, best friends. And I'd randomly, you know, get the P test the night I decided to use or drink or whatever. And, I'd be back out on the streets and I'd think to myself, joke's on you now. You know what I mean? I'd call those guys in the halfway and smartly, they wouldn't answer my phone call, but, I'd be like, joke's on you, you know, and that led to a lot of tough situations for me. I remember one funny story in Pittsburgh halfway house. I never could understand how I got kicked out of a halfway house for shipping the substance kratom to the halfway house and the manager finding it. And I argued with this guy on my way out the door, which kratom is like an alternative substance that definitely messes you up. And my whole plan was to sell it to everybody in the halfway house. And he found it. And I argued, this is legal. You know, I was pulled out my law book. I knew all the laws and all this stuff. And I don't really care. See you later. So that being said, coming into 30 and moving to Florida and going to a halfway, there's nothing glamorous about it. You know what I mean? There's nothing glamorous about being 30 and going to a halfway. Me personally, even going into that halfway house, I was like, told my buddy, he came and picked me up in Pittsburgh and brought me to the halfway house. Told him, I said, dude, when you get here, I'm sober. I've been sober for 30 days. I got rent money. When we get there, I'm going to pay like 3 months rent in advance because I'm doing well. You know, meanwhile, I've got like 15 dirty grocery bags with winter clothes. And I'm getting messed up all the way down there. And I get there and they barely let me in, you know. So that's the beginning of my experience. But if you pick a good structured halfway house and actually follow the rules, good things can come. And one thing I would say, one piece of advice, don't pick the halfway house that lets you stay on drugs. That's usually not a good, they do exist. Don't Google them if you're thinking about going to a halfway house. Don't, just stay away from them. Pick the one that's structured, and don't look for a roommate to be your spiritual mentor. That's another one. I used to do that as well. You know, we'd have to pick a kind of like a leader, and I'd be like, I'm gonna pick this guy. He's been here like as long as me, and our plan would be like, Yeah, let's play PlayStation and just never look out the window. We'll be all right. And
Drink Mountain Dew.
yeah, drink Mountain Dews. Another thing, a mea culpa, which by the way means a acknowledgement of one's fault or error. I got to make a mea culpa to all the people I was in the halfway house with until I really got my shit together, because I stole all your food. I mean, I ate the sandwiches. No one would have ever known it was me. I didn't steal like valuables, but man, if Greg was my roommate, I would have been in there best budding it with him. I would have been eating his cheese. I would have put that. He probably would have had the good brioche bread. I would have been putting sandwiches together at like 2 a.m. That would have been me. So I'm sorry to all you guys, but I needed it more than you did. Another halfway house thing I would say is don't see the good in people. Don't see the good in people in the halfway house. Don't try to be like the savior of the halfway house. Like Corey and Greg both touched on it. Like go outside, get the vital blood tap of vitality and life from something else and not your halfway house. As I say every week on here, ghost ride the whip. No, I'm just kidding. Water seeks its own level. Water seeks its own level. So do not see the good in people. I made that mistake. I'm going to save everybody. Meanwhile, I couldn't even save myself. And if you never heard it before, if a plane's going down, you got to put your own oxygen mask on before you attempt to save anyone else. Getting into some funny stories. So one thing is, at the halfway house I was at, there was probably 80 people there, Greg, probably maybe more.
Oh yeah,
when I was there, threw my bed outside my room. I think that's a little too far, but I'm still pissed about it. However, I did make my bed after that, because when I got to the halfway house, I'm not gonna front, like when I got to the halfway house, I didn't know how to shower correctly. I didn't know how to make my bed. I didn't know how to fold clothes. That shit seemed overwhelming. You know what I mean? It was an abrupt thing for me, for someone to do that to me. And from what I've learned, you don't allow someone to do that to you. However, I wanted to stay, and I had enough debt there and things that give me enough opportunities that I dealt with it and I persevered. But I also, seen pasta thrown in the beds, all that stuff, and people just acting a fool. Greg made a great point. Don't mess with the dude that's just out of jail on a reprieve for too long in the halfway. Usually that dude is probably no joke. I won't get it too far into that, but
that was over a woman, by the way. So there's that. Yeah.
Yeah, Greg decided to mess with a guy who just got out of prison. Decided to fluff around, and like, hey, Greg, I don't know if you know or not, but this guy's literally planning on shanking you.
Yeah, absolutely insane.
Like, I literally just saw him put a shank in his back pocket. So yeah, you might want to just chill out. And Greg's like, oh, all right, thanks. And he goes in his house and shuts the door. And I talked this guy off the cliff, and I'm like, dude, it was. So that's what you're up against. That's a real situation in a halfway house. So once again, if you've never been to a halfway house, thank your lucky stars. Another thing, what I'd say my funniest story thinking about it would be, I was running the halfway house. I was doing well. I go out to Sean's favorite restaurant, Flanagan's. He's on the logo.
Hell yeah.
It's his favorite. And I see a guy. I go up. I'm at the restaurant. I got to go to the bathroom. I walk past the bar, and I see a guy from the halfway house sitting at the bar ordering 2 shots for him and I'm sure a wonderful young lady. And I just walk up to him and I put my hand on his shoulder, and you see him and he turns around and there's like a bead of sweat coming down his forehead and his eyes like shaking like it's having a seizure. And he's just like, oh, hey man, I was just ordering her a shot. And meanwhile, he smells like alcohol. So I'm like, oh, all right, cool, man, cool. And he knew I knew, and I knew he knew I knew. So I was like, I'll just wait for him to come back. Well, he ended up getting arrested that night. But the funniest part about the halfway house is that guy ended up being in my wedding, and he's one of my best friends. Shout out to Mark, man. But like
Absolutely.
that dude is a psycho for that one. That was hilarious. And at the time I hated the dude for that. I was like, what an asshole, which he was at the time. But you end up. You don't want to, like I said, don't associate or try to save people there. But people on the path with you that stay on that path with you, they'll come along the path. You don't need to carry them. You know what I mean? And just remember, if you're truly not using anything and you're in the halfway house and everyone seems weird, it's because they're all high, and stay away from them. And that's usually the truth. So many times I've seen people that I thought were doing really well, and the next thing you know. So if you're there, like stick to why you're there. I pray to God I never have to go to another halfway house. I hope nobody ever has to go to another halfway house. So if you're there, accept that you're there for a reason. Make something of it. And I will say this, one of the pleasures of what I do is going back to that halfway house and talking to people and being a leader. My name's on the board there. People can call me anytime there. I'm respected there. I barely got allowed in there when I first got there, and I almost got kicked out like Corey like 3 or 4 times. So you can turn your life around. There is a solution. There is hope. But if you mess around with the wrong people, you're going to get lit. That's all I got.
If you fluff around.
Fluff around.
You said that earlier, and I was like, fluff around and find out. I like that.
Don't fluff me off, Corey.
Yeah.
He is a good fluffer.
So, just in closing with this segment, and it's true, we make light of it, we make fun of it. I still to this day don't understand the idea of a co-ed halfway house like that. Absolutely blows my mind. That is just asking for not good things to happen. I'm very happy that mine was not co-ed, and I'm not even going to go into stories. I will say this though, the belly laugh that Greg was talking about, I can remember sitting in the garage of my halfway house, 2.5 months sober, whatever it was, and just dying of laughter with these knuckleheads that none of them, to my knowledge, are even sober today. But in that moment, at that time, on a random, Thursday night, 10 o'clock, South Florida, there was complete harmony and happiness and contentment in that garage, that halfway house. And every single one of us, I think, were sober in that moment, at least. Maybe 1 or 2, but really we were sober, and we were just truly just having a good time. And that was a lasting memory for me. We've all kind of touched on it. I can speak for myself, and I can speak for the 4 of us, that we would not be the men that we are today without our experiences at the halfway house. It helped me with a foundation to recovery, and I'm forever grateful. And as we have all kind of said already, my time there was so valuable and important. I hope I never obviously have to go back to one to live. And I get the privilege of, we take meetings and we take, stuff into those halfway houses today. So great stuff. Lots of stories to come. Maybe we'll see. We might have another segment on it later, but we're going to get into the On the Beam spirituality, better living segment. We've been going around these last few weeks, and we're going to kind of jump right into it. Corey's going to get the mic first on this, so get ready, Corey. But this is going to be about asking. We've talked a lot about this higher power, God as we understand it, and this is going to be a lot about asking for these defects of character, these shortcomings in our lives. A lot of the stuff we've uncovered in the inventory process that we talked about last week, truly becoming ready to have them removed out of our lives, or at least becoming lessened. Best way and simplest way, and it's kind of cheesy, but it's a perfect way, is I'm cleaning out the garage, and I'm putting it all on the side of the road, and I'm calling the Salvation Army or Goodwill or whoever to come get it. Like, I'm preparing the garage, which is myself, the internal, and then I'm making the call to the higher power to come remove everything. So, Corey, go ahead, bud.
What's funny is that I was literally just thinking, I thought I was supposed to start one of these off. And then you said that, and I was like, yeah, that's right. It's this one.
There you go, buddy. Glad you figured it out.
Not great. Not great.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm not going to take up too much time here, but this
you don't have that many defects, so that makes sense.
I truly have nothing to talk about. I'm going to talk about the defects I think you guys have, and we'll go from there. So one thing I can say is that I had a period of sobriety one time that didn't last very long. It lasted a few months, but I remember like being in a rehab, and then when I got out of it, I remember being in the rehab and being impressed upon that, like, my character needed to change, essentially, I guess is the gist of it. So I thought, like, okay, easy enough, So I get out of that rehab, and some things changed. Like I was willing to go get a job and things like that, and like kind of pay my way a little bit. I mean, I was paying my buddy Bubby, not a whole lot of money, but a little bit of money to stay at his place, till I screwed that up. But so some things changed. I became a little bit more responsible or whatever. But the whole idea in my head was that like I could increase, or I could change my morals and my character for the better by myself. And maybe some people can do that. However, at the time I was so delusional, even being dry or abstinent from any drugs or alcohol, I was still very delusional as to what it meant to be a decent person. I had no idea that I was selfish in any way. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't looking at the things that I actually was as a person. So when I got sober this time, luckily got around the right people who had actually done something about who they were as people. And one of the things that I realized by listening to a guy or two that had been sober a lot longer than I had was that an alcoholic or a drug addict like me, we've already talked about it in the past weeks, that like people like us needed a spiritual solution, or needed a God. I call it God. Whatever the power is in your life is that's your thing, but I just call it God because it's easy, and I think that's fine. But I found out that I would need God to actually become a better person, because previously I was trying to become a better person, which I did not put much effort into, along the lines of like my will. It was very skewed. As long as I'm getting up for work and I'm going to the gym, that's better. But I do nothing for anybody. I'm doing some activities that I won't mention on the podcast, being married today, that were not cool back then. And I'm still hurting people. I'm still inconsiderate and selfish, and I'm definitely not making any amends or anything, or any restitution to people I had harmed or anything like that. Like I was not changed. So my point is like I said, like I needed to kind of figure out how I think God would have me be, and one of the first things was to identify what I actually was as a person. We talked a little bit about that last week, about like a personal house cleaning. Found out that I was dishonest in basically every relationship I had, selfish in every relationship I had, inconsiderate, like you mentioned, Sean, last week. Inconsiderate was a big thing that I forgot about last week. I didn't consider anybody but myself, So like once we know all those things, like what do we do about it? Like, sure, one big thing is to try to act the opposite of those things. That's for sure. And that's something that, we do have a little bit of human power with, I guess, if that makes sense. Anybody agree with that? Yeah? Am I on the right track? Remember, I'm talking about your defects here, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Spot on, of course.
Couldn't be wrong.
So, like, if I'm selfish, then I need to kind of go out of my way to act unselfish at times, or most of the time. I need to try to think about other people more than I think about myself. It's something I still struggle with today, but like definitely not to the extent of when I got sober. I would think. I've had my moments over the years, I guess. And ultimately, aside from that, like, I need to kind of relinquish some of that power, or maybe all of it, to God, or whatever the power is in your life that you believe in, and ask for help with that. And ultimately, as you guys well know, like quite literally ask for those things to be removed. And that's still a prayer today, is, God, help me be the best version of me I can be today. Please remove selfishness, dishonesty, and all that from my thinking and actions and all that today. Like that, that's a big thing with like prayer and meditation schedule, routine, whatever you want to call it, in the morning. That's something to kind of get your mind wrapped around that in the morning. And I totally said that I didn't have much, and now I'm talking. But so I'll wrap it up. But ultimately, you know, like I said, I'm selfish. I'm dishonest. I hurt people left to my own devices because I'm all about me, you know. So today, trying to, one, identify what I'm being that, two, change it by, you know, a little bit of my power, like try and act the opposite, whatever that may look like at the time. And three, like, certainly bring God into that situation, you know. Because ultimately I have found that through personal experience that I will not become a better person with my own tools. You know, I need his. So that's it. Next.
Thank you, Corey.
Thanks, Corey.
Bill, you're up next.
I'll just say, you know, God loves you. God will forgive you no matter what you've done. He's already forgiven you. Mm-hmm. And be good to yourself. And for me, my only problem is me. My only problem is whenever I'm in control. My only problem is whenever I think to myself, God can't fix this problem, then I'm really in trouble. And it's about transparency and evolution. I can't be stagnant and say, well, I've decided that this is who I want to be now, because tomorrow I need to be even better. And if I keep my my head down low enough to continue to work to have a relationship with him, he'll show me everything I need. And I would hate to wake up tomorrow and not think I need to work on my defects, because there'll be new ones tomorrow. I feel like the devil is creative, and if you're struggling with that, ask God to reveal himself, and when he does, offer him to reveal your defects to you. That's what I did, and as a result of that, I'll be working hard on it tomorrow, trying to get better. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Bill. Greg?
Yeah, I think just like with a lot of this stuff, we could really muddy this up and go on and on about it, but it for me is very, very simple. This is about a little bit of willingness and a whole lot of humility, right? So from doing an inventory and sharing it with somebody that I trust, I figure out that I am flawed and I have many shortcomings. I know personally for myself, like I can have a tendency to be self-righteous and self-serving, dishonest, fearful. And because of those fears, I can be downright cruel to other people. I can lash out at other people for no good reason. So the question becomes, how do I heal and move past these things? Right. And, the truth is, for me, I absolutely cannot do it on my own. Left to my own devices, I'm that selfish, dishonest, greedy, jealous, intolerant individual. And I have a tendency more often than not to hurt others, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And so this is why it stressed to me very early on that I needed to begin the process, at least, of putting my faith and my life into the hands of a power greater than myself, right? It's also why absolute honesty is essential. I mean, this isn't like a pity party that we're on right now. It's a real look at your true self, your true flaws, and so that you can identify them and begin the process of removing them for good. Because if we start justifying our misery, we usually end up recommitting to it. So, and I love the analogy that Sean started off with, but this is basically like me. I'm bagging up all the trash inside my house, and sometimes I need a friend that I trust to come help me tell me what is trash and what's not, because sometimes I have a tendency to be a little bit of a hoarder. And then sometimes I need that friend's help to take it down to the street. It might be a lot of stuff, right? But if I get it down to the street, the Salvation Army or the trash guy, he's gonna come by in his dump truck because my vehicle's not big enough to take all that stuff to the dump by myself. He's gonna come along in his trash truck and he's gonna take it. Very
nice of Deshaun Watson.
It is. It is. It was not by my higher power, by the way, but if I have made a conscious effort at this point to develop a relationship with a God of my understanding, he's going to collect all my trash and take it away from me. And as you can imagine, certainly for me, this is not a one-time process. My house to this day still gets dirty. I still have to identify the trash, bag it up, and take it out to the street. But if I do these measures wholeheartedly and on a regular basis, I usually find that my life is a lot more easy, and that the relationships with my family, my girlfriend, my friends, and the rest of the world are usually pretty healthy and fulfilling. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. Great discussion, guys. You guys made some great analogies and stuff. And here's the bottom line. Everything we've talked about in the weeks leading up to this, each week springboards off the previous, right? So, admitting complete defeat, powerlessness, surrender, coming to believe that there is a power out there that is not me or another human power, that there is a mystical, spiritual, metaphysical power out there that can restore me to sanity. We identify it, most of us as God. Turning our will and our lives over to that God. Trusting that God enough to do a complete moral house cleaning, a complete moral inventory, get rid of, or at least start to identify the things that need to be get rid of. And now we're in this part of the recovery process where we're actually fully aware of what our defects and our shortcomings are, and we're praying to the God that we still may not understand that much, but that we are forming a partnership and a relationship with to remove these things. My biggest character defects are gone, and they haven't been around in close to 13 years. I don't drink anymore. I don't get high anymore. I don't shoplift anymore. And I'm not infidelitus. Yes, new word, just created it. Infidelitus, meaning I have not committed infidelity since I've been sober. We don't often look at my drinking and my drug use and the shoplifting, whatever, as defects of character, but they are. They're just the biggest ones I have. God removed the obsession to drink and do drugs from me a long time ago, and it hasn't returned only because every day when I wake up, I continue to just turn it back over to the God as I understand him, and I stay in the middle of a recovery program. The not as glaring ones, the selfishness, the dishonesty, the fear, all that stuff, I think Corey touched on it. I am definitely not as selfish as I was when I first got sober, and 2 years sober and 5 years sober, or as fearful or as self-seeking. Who doesn't like to be a little self-righteous to our fellow man sometimes? I know I do, but I'm definitely not as self-righteous as I have been over the years. It doesn't mean these things can't buck their head a little bit. It just simply means that I've been working at this thing, and I've been working at this program. There is nothing that me as a human, can do to remove my own defects of character. The only possible thing I can do to aid the God of my understanding in helping get some of these things, and I think, again, Corey touched on it as well, it might have been Bill, go out and do some esteemable acts, right? Go pick up shopping carts that are strewn about in the parking lot at Walmart and help that guy out. Pay for the person in Dunkin' Donuts behind me. Go do something nice and don't tell anybody about it. We've all heard that one before. Like, I can do some of those things and that will help me feel better, but I cannot remove any of my own defects, any more than I can keep myself sober, which was none at all. My personal belief is that my service to others is what, so we have this theory, right? I might have, if I have a garden, I don't grow the plants, right? I create an environment in the dirt where the plant can get water and sunlight and other nutrients, and God is the one that grows that plant. If I'm a surgeon, I don't actually heal the patient. I simply create that sanitary environment, and whether it's put some stitches or do some things that creates this environment within that person, and God actually does the healing, right? The tissues and the bone and all that stuff is not healed by me, it's healed by God. I just maybe put them together and, put a few things in it. It's the same thing with sobriety. I don't get myself sober. I get into an environment where I can get the sunlight and the nutrients that I need from God to stay sober. It's the same thing. By my service to others in helping out the next sick and suffering alcoholic or drug addict, taking them through a recovery program, Greg said it, just reaching out to them if I think they might even be struggling. I don't even have to know for certain they might be struggling. Lend a helping hand, doing service outside of recovery for other people, because God knows there's plenty of people in the world that need it. By putting myself in those positions, I'm actually creating the proper environment for God to come in and make me less selfish and make me less fearful and inconsiderate and so on and so forth. I am totally fooling myself if I think I'm doing anything with these defects of character. And that's been a huge revelation for me. My spiritual internal condition and the outward picture of that spiritual condition is only as strong as in the lengths and the depths I will go to help the next sick and suffering alcoholic. And for me, that's a healthy involvement in local recovery program. So that's all I got. We're just about done. Does anybody else want to add anything to this segment, or any parting thoughts, or anything at all?
That was beautiful. Thanks, Sean.
My pleasure.
Did anybody
but Corey? Anybody else but Corey? I'm just kidding.
Did anybody notice that I changed my name on the call here?
I did notice.
We did notice, Corey. Yeah.
You know why?
Because your hands are little.
Do you accept?
On August 3rd, Cleveland, Ohio, I'm coming for that title, Ginger Ninja. I'm coming. Mother.
Oh, yeah.
I broke my mic. That was a solid.
We'll be waiting for you.
I'll be waiting for you. I broke it. Character defect.
Now the hand's got to hold it.
What an idiot. What a
you had
loser.
To make a scene. You had to make a scene. You had to make it all about you. And look what you did, Corey.
Yeah, I'm selfish. Oh, well.
Parting thoughts? Everybody good? Anybody want to add anything?
Don't forget to place the Super Bowl bet.
Shout out to our listeners. Shout out to Danny P and the Yukon Huskies. They absolutely rolled the Stetson Hatters today. NCAA tournament is popping off, guys. There's a lot of upsets so far.
They're supposed to roll
support.
Stetson. Go ahead.
But they rolled them by like 45. No, they rolled them by like 45 points. 45 points, dude. That's a proper rolling. A lot of other teams barely won or didn't win at all that should have won. So they're looking good. Thank you for your support. Please like, follow, and share on all socials at Trudge Report Pod. Email us, trudgereportpod@yahoo.com. Please send mailbag requests for topics, questions, and comments to any of these handles. Remember, we are all here. If anyone wants to talk about recovery, our experience, or if you're struggling with some form of addiction or just want more information, thank you again to Janine and Stella Mix Podcast Management. Good night. God bless, and may you trudge the road of happy destiny. We will see you next week. Cheers.